Okay, hi kids. It's almost midnight. I'm trying my best after my kids have gone to bed and everybody's had their dinner and showers. I'm trying my best to stay up to speed with the grade book. I think as of right now, the Neo grade book is complete and accurate as I can make it. Um, I have some information about your exam, so you should be able to go to Neo. And two of you had problems with submissions. I think I've communicated via email with both of you. Everybody else should see a column that says multiple choice. Don't worry about the percentage. A column that says FRQ. Don't worry about the percentage. And then a column that says unit to total, I believe. And that's your actual grade. And I'll discuss how we calculate that. You could probably go to AP Classroom, see your test, and you'll see that your multiple choice is the same. So whatever you got right on the College Board is what I should have in that column for your multiple choice. But then there's another column on AP College Board. You can see your free response test. That's been doubled on Neo. So the way that I calculate is multiple choice plus double your free response. Complicated, but the College Board gives you a 60-40 split on your points. And so they'll have like 30 possible points on free response and 100 possible points on multiple choice. And then they use an adjustment factor so that it comes out to be 60% of your grade is from multiple choice, 40 comes from free response. The way that we get pretty close to that is with a consistent adjustment factor. So I will always total your grade by your multiple choice plus double your free response. So if you got a 5 on the free response test at AP Classroom, that will be recorded in my grade book as a 10 on the free response. Technically, there were 15 multiple choice possible and 6 points possible in the free response. So 16 plus 2 times 6 is 15 plus 12 is 27 points possible. That would have been a perfect score. One student got a perfect score in this exam this year. There was one student with a 26. They only missed 1 point. And then I believe that there was 1 or 2 students with a 25. But I set the curve at 21. And I kind of had to cheat myself a little bit. Normally, I would just throw out the top 10% of scores and set the curve there. But there was a really big bias towards students in third period. I think that maybe they cheated. I can't prove it, but I kind of wonder if you think that's fair. If you think it is fair, then right on, Mazel Tov. But if you don't think that's fair, remember that I'll pay you to find me evidence of someone having cheated. Okay, so your scores, always calculated as multiple choice plus double your free response. That would be your score. And in this case, we divide that by 21 because that's where the curve was set. So that's how I arrive at your percentage on this test. Keep in mind, somebody could have like a 23, and so that kid has like a very good score. Also keep in mind that right now, if you've got a 15 out of 21, there's a lot of points left. Technically, with your 15 out of 21, you still have like 12 points possible. So you could do a full test correction for 12 missing incorrect questions. I would give you, half the credit for those. So that would be a 21 out of 21. You could still get a perfect score by correcting your 15 out of 21. Remember that for test corrections, you have to write the question, write what you think is now the correct answer, make sure that you make that really obvious, and then you'd have to explain why based on something from our book or from our class or from our lecture. Students cannot do the test corrections if they have missing assignments in this unit. Okay. It's weird. I hear like a weird static noise. I hope that's not on your end. Okay. So let's talk about the test, right? Some of you may not need this following section. If you wanted to go do your test corrections, you can go do your test corrections, but I want to talk about the individual questions. The multiple choice questions don't have a relevant number because each of your tests has them in a different order. So you might need to skip around. There was a question, let's see here. The question that did the very best, the question that almost nobody got wrong, was about how plants synthesize glucose in photosynthesis. That was our most successful question. I believe only 2 or 3 kids got that one wrong. Another one that was pretty uniquely successful was that the sun is the ultimate energy source for terrestrial ecosystems. The definition of nitrification was pretty easy for you. Students did pretty well with the assimilation term, with photosynthesis and respiration in the carbon cycle. Started to get less good with carbon deposits, removing carbon from the atmosphere. Less good with carbon sinks in forest and ocean. The ecosystem services was pretty decent. Denitrification terms, not bad, not bad. Competitive exclusion I thought would be really difficult, the one that had a graph that showed the 2 species success, but actually that one did pretty well. There was a couple of questions that students did really badly though. Students did really badly on phosphorus being a limiting factor because it only works in solution. I'm gonna keep that question. We went over that in class. The term limiting factor may have been the sticking point. But again, remember that because it's only available in water, when you've used up what was in the water, there's nothing else to accelerate that. All that you can have in an ecosystem is how much has dissolved into water. Students also did badly identifying trophic levels of organisms, and I'll give you full credit for that correction. In your test correction, please make sure that you write full credit when you go to fix the multiple choice question where you had to identify the trophic levels of organisms. Yeah, that's it for the multiple choice questions. I thought that the one where you needed to know the trophic levels, maybe we didn't cover enough in this part of the class. In the FRQs, students did really, really well identifying the primary producer in the food web. As a matter of fact, that was nearly perfect. I believe just 1 or 2 students got that wrong, which was kind of notable because later on in part B of the FRQ, a lot of people couldn't describe what primary production is. And I don't know, I kind of thought if you can identify who's a primary producer, then I feel like you should be able to explain what is primary production. There was a question about how ecosystem would be affected by taking too many crabs or something, and most of you did really well. Only a few of you got that one wrong. Likewise, there was one that looked for species competing for the same food source. And as long as you could follow the arrows, students did well with that. There were 2 parts of the FRQ that I'll give you full credit. Remember, in your corrections, you have to write full credit next to part A2 that said identify a tertiary consumer. I kind of thought that these terms were easy, but I realized that perhaps they weren't. So the first, second, third, fourth layers of an ecosystem are the primary producer that's eaten by a primary consumer, that's an herbivore. A secondary consumer eats herbivores, and a tertiary consumer is like a predator that hunts other carnivores. So we go primary, secondary, tertiary consumers above the producers. So the tertiary consumer is usually the top of the food web. Apex predator. So if you can identify that in the food web, I would give you full credit for that correction. Remember, you have to write full credit next to that correction. The other one that I'll give you full credit for correcting was the last part of the free response question. And this was the hardest for all of my students, and I understand why, and I'll take the credit so you can have a full credit correction. Here's your answer. In part D, the last part of the FRQ, you were asked for realistic management solutions. A good hint would have been the part of the question that was missing. So when they show you the food web, they don't tell you that there's fishing going on. Realistically, when people in government want to control the population of a species, you really cannot erase the predators or add the prey. Most of you made a logical connection in the food web that was not accepted. Most of you said, I don't know, kill off the things that eat a crab. Or you said, just give more food to the crabs. But that's not reasonable or viable or realistic management. That would make sense if you could just play with food webs, but we really can't. You didn't know this, so I'll give you full credit for something which is more based on policy. The College Board will often ask you questions about realistic solutions. And we cannot erase people. We cannot kill off a bunch of seagulls or add a whole bunch of crab food. But generally what we can do is legal or governmental things. Like you can pass limits on fishing, you can create protected areas, you can do habitat improvement projects, you can regulate pollution. These are the ways that we can use law to realistically control the number of crabs. You could limit how many crabs you're taking. You could limit how much pollution is added to the water, assuming that that would help the survivorship of the babies or the growth of their food. You can protect areas, habitat preserves, habitat improvement projects. So you can focus on factors that are broken in that ecosystem to improve the habitat overall, and that would make more crab food available. But you had to have a realistic management tool. And I'll give you a warning. I'm sorry that I got that wrong. That's probably on me that I didn't prepare you for this question, but it's a great example. You can fix it for free. Make a free test correction. I'll give you your full credit. Make sure that you write full credit. But a good hint for you is it'll happen on the AP test. When they ask for realistic answers, they want stuff that's legally viable. So for your test corrections, you would put a standard heading, you would say multiple choice, and it would be the question. You would say, I think the right answer is this, and then you would say why. If there was something that I give you full credit, you would write full credit next to it. Okay. Then for the free response, likewise, you would say the question, what you think is the right answer, and why that's the right answer. Remember that there are a couple like A2 and D that I'll give you full credit for D and for A2 when you do your test corrections. These are just free points. All you got to do is just upload an image that has these answers, you know, look through your test, and then you can get some free test points. A lot of you could afford to improve your grade, so remember that you have until the next exam to turn in your test corrections. And if I were you, I'd get that out of the way soon, because when the exam is coming, I'd rather you be available to study for that. Okay. I am glad that I made this video, but I am exhausted. So I'm going to go get some sleep while this converts and uploads to YouTube. And then I'll make you some more videos in the morning, and then I'll see you before you see these videos. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to stop this. I'm sorry, I'm sure I babbled a little bit. I'm really tired. Okay, bye.